Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Yamaha FZ6 project. So what we're going to do in this video is get right to it. You're probably going to want to grab yourself a drink because this is quite a long episode, but we want to get tons done on the bike and hopefully we can get it going again since we've done all that work. So with that being said, we're going to get going. So we've now got ourselves set up. What I want to start doing is looking at the back of the bike and working on the swing arm. The chain and sprockets have turned up. I've got the manual all set up here and I've just fired up the ultrasonic cleaner. Somebody who's got the same one of these did recommend preheating the water because apparently these take quite a long time to warm up, or this particular model does. So I've done that, and what I'm going to be looking to do is put these chain or rear wheel adjusters in there first. So I'm going to put those in there and we'll head over to the back of the bike and make a start on getting those bits fitted. Split link in there anyway. We can still get this on and in place. So we've just marked the nut for the swing arm there, so we know that that's done up. What I'm going to do now is there's a little bolt in here that just holds the chain guide on. So I'm going to torque that up, that's just 10 Newton meters. I'll do this up later once I've got the back wheel and everything on, because then I can just lock the back brake on, put it in gear, and that will hold that tight for me. So my plan now is to start laying out the engine wiring loom. I've given each of the connectors a bit of a clean, just with some contact cleaner. I will clean them again as I connect them back together, but I just want to lay this out and in place roughly, because I don't want to start bolting more and more bits on and then find that I've got this located in the wrong place. The really good thing about the bike manuals as well is that it does actually show you all the cable routing, so that's fantastic. So it gives us an idea of where the stuff's going to go. Just putting the wiring on here for the starter motor. That's the rear wheel adjusters now out of the cleaning machine. They've come up a damn sight cleaner than they were. They're not perfect, but I've only had them in there for sort of half hour or so. So I can now put them back in the bike. These are the two brackets that hold on the belly tray. So these secure onto the bottom of the sump, and then this one is for the bottom of the radiator. These were all rusty and horrible, so we've managed to get the broken studs or bolts out of the two belly tray brackets. We've cleaned them all up, rust treated them, put some etch primer on them, and then we've just painted them in a satin black, so they can go back on the bike now. We'll do the same for the other side in a minute. I am just going to put on the radiator bracket. So we've now got the wiring loom laid out and into place. We've started plugging some of the connectors in. We've got the battery positive down onto the starter motor. We've got the engine earth in place. It may well be that we need to unplug some of this stuff, but for the minute I want to try and get as much of it routed in and plugged in as possible so that I don't get caught out later. We've also put in the air recirculation valve. There's a valve down here which basically goes on to the top of the crankcase breather here, so that's on its mount and that's all plugged in now. Now got ourselves some new exhaust gaskets, some new studs to replace the broken ones, and a set of new brass exhaust nuts. I've managed to get all of the manifold studs now in and tight. I have put this water hose on and also one of the hoses down here, one of the water hoses for the oil cooler. I was going to put this whole section on here, but when I was cleaning this metal pipe, it was quite corroded here and I ended up poking a screwdriver through it. So what I've done now is just taken that off and separated that. I'm going to put the exhaust on, and I thought that it was probably best to put these on now so I can access them still, and then I'll have to get a new one of these because that's no good. So we can put the exhaust on now. I have oiled all of these threads already prior to putting the exhaust on. Then we got the mounting bolt at the back. Just going to torque that up. Now going to look to get the front forks in. I've just put some more pressure on the ratchet strap at the back there just to bring the front up a bit more. Now just putting in the coolant reservoir and the bracketry that holds that, or the expansion bottle and the bracketry that holds all of that. Got the subframe assembly to go on now. I'm absolutely loving this. Starting to look like a bike now. So I'm now just going to thread the wiring loom through. I just want to leave these loose for the minute. I don't want to go crazy and do them up. And then find that I've got to take them all back out in a second anyway. So I'm going to start routing this through, make sure it's in the right position. That's all that wiring here roughly laid out where it needs to go. I'm going to look at doing up this plastic section now, doing up the subframe, also securing this, and there's some similar sort of plugs and bits and pieces on this side I need to take care of as well. I did buy a new one of these because the basically the inner tray here was split down in the bottom, so I have also given that all a real good clean off camera, made sure that that's free of dirt and grit. Now I'm going to start putting all the handlebars back on. I've given these a paint, rust treated them, etch primer, then just a coat of some metallic silver. We're going to put these back on the bike so we can start building them up. I haven't painted the bar ends yet or anything like that. I just want to get these on. I will torque them up to spec, but then I'll probably loosen them off at a later date and adjust them once I'm sat on the bike so that they're at a comfortable position for me. So for the moment we'll just nip those up. I wanted to start fitting some of the handlebar controls because this plug here plugs into this one, and in a moment I want to try and fit the battery tray assembly and the coils, and I just didn't want to find that I'm then struggling in a minute to try and get all of this lot plugged in with that in place. So that plugs into there. We can just pull that cover over it. So I'm just plugging the coil wires on now. Just make sure with the HT leads you really push them right on. Make sure that they're on nice and tight. And then this battery tray has got like two hooks at the bottom of it. So you just sort of hook it in place. Haha, yes. Perfect. That's now on where it should be. And we've got our negative and our positive up like so. What we might have to do though is we might have to just pull this back out, because we do have this engine mat here that lays across the top. So I might see if I can tuck that in now. See how we get on there. Not going to put this on as such just yet because I need to take it back off to put the brake lever on, but that did give me the opportunity to plug that section of wiring in, which I need to unplug because I've gone the wrong way around the fork leg. There we go, take two. So plugged in there. I'm not going to do the battery tray up either because the radiator cooling fan plug is tucked under here. It goes up into the sort of front section of the frame there, and it's a nightmare to get to. So I'm going to leave that for the minute because I still want to take care of some bits relating to the radiator. So we've now put the front discs back on. We gave them a clean, we've measured them, they're all okay. We have now torqued up the bolts that mount those, and we're going to put it back onto the bike. So I have already pre-greased the axle. We just need to make sure that we get this going the right way round. So we want to check our arrow on the wheel itself. So the wheel axle bolt, we're just going to torque that up now. That's 72 Newton meters, and then we're going to do the pinch bolt here afterwards, and that's 23. You just mark that one. Now I fitted all of this manifold, or the exhaust headers, and I thought things were going really, really well with that. It all fit up nicely, and I was just about to put the back section of the exhaust on, and I've made a mistake with these. I've ended up ordering the wrong headers. I didn't know that there was a difference. I thought that all of the phasers had under-seat exhausts, but it would appear that this is for like a side exit or an exhaust that comes up by the swing arm. So what I'm going to do is I will just show you where the pipe should bend round. I'll show you the new headers that I've got. We're going to have to take these ones off and swap them over because that's just not going to fit. And I did also make the mistake of throwing the old set away. Although they were battered and bruised where we had to cut them all about to get them off, I could have potentially chopped off the back section there and just welded that in. So it's a lessons learnt for me, and a suggestion for you guys is that if you are doing projects like this, keep hold of everything right until you're finished, just in case you need anything that you need to sort out at a later date. So hopefully you can see just tucked in here where the chain is, you've got the exhaust coming out there, and that should go up so that this section here, if I tuck that up and into place, that should curve up and round and into there. It looks like the top one has been cut. That's the first one that I had off. Looks like somebody's cut it and modified that to make it work. Perfect. Of all the ones, I picked the one that somebody's modified. I'll do better at looking at the photos next time. That's now the new headers on. The bolt underneath that holds them in place there as well. We've just re-torqued them up and remarked the nuts and the bolt on the bottom. I'm actually really pleased that we have ended up swapping these out, because these ones are in much, much better condition. They look better overall. They're a lot cleaner, a lot less corrosion on them, especially on these mounting flanges as well. So now I can put this section back in. I'm not going to film that because that's going to be a bit awkward to get the camera in there, but you've just got that clamp that goes down onto the bottom of the exhaust there that comes up through the swing arm, and then you've got that bolt there that just holds it in place. Our new water pipe has now turned up, so we can look at fitting that down in here. Just going to grab myself a ratchet for that last little one down in there. But other than that, this pipe is all fitted now. I now want to get the radiator in, because the plug for the cooling fan is tucked right up here, and it's really awkward to get to with all of this stuff up the top. Basically, once that's built up a bit more, it just ends up being in the way and it's awkward. So I'm going to go and attempt to try and get this all fitted in now. I'll just use this top hose just to hold it in, I think, for the minute. So that can hold that, just while we try and plug this in. Right, that's us all plugged in there. So that's good. So then we've just got 2 securing bolts, which I've already oiled. Just got one. One at the top there. Just put them in the wrong way around. They're slightly longer on the bottom here. Mark those up. Then we can get our hoses on this side. So this one goes down onto the oil cooler and onto the bottom of the rad there. Right, that's that one all now in place. So we can look at putting the bottom hose on the other side. Just got these pipes mixed up between on the water pump there, so I'm just swapping them over just to make sure that they're in the right place. That one and that one, and then we have got some up here as well. So that's now most of the cooling system back onto the bike. We've got a couple more lines which are on the throttle bodies, and what I want to do is turn my attention to those now because they need unseizing, a good clean and a check over. I'm really pleased with where the bike's got to at this stage, and I cannot wait to try and start this thing again and hear it running. So let's get on with them throttle bodies, get them cleaned. So I'm just going to spray some penetrating oil just onto the linkages here. I will give all of this a real good clean afterwards, but for the minute I just want to try and see if I can unseize this lot because it's really, really stiff to turn. So I'm just using the end here, and I've just got a T-bar or a T-handle, and I'm just using that to gently work it back and forth. So I'll carry on doing that, see if I can get it to free up. It is freeing up now. It's getting a lot better than it was. But yeah, we want that nice and free. Just behind these little covers here, as you can see over on this side, is access as well to the throttle linkage that goes right the way through the bodies themselves. So if you undo, there's a little screw that holds these on. Just lift these up slightly. And you can spin that out the way, and then inside here there's just a tiny little rubber bung. And it gives you access right in there. So just put some penetrating oil in there and then do a bit more work in it with our T-handle. We've now managed to free these off, which is fantastic. If I just turn this here by hand, which I couldn't do before, that's wide open there, as you can see, and then if I let it go, they're straight back to where they were. So I'm now just siphoning the fuel out of the fuel tank, just down into this fuel can here. Just got one of these little siphoning pipes, so I'll just let that drain all the fuel out so that we can put some nice fresh clean fuel in the tank before we try and start the bike. So we've got one of the plugs goes down into the temperature sensor on the cylinder head there. I'm going to plug that one in, and then we've got a water line that goes down there as well, so we need to get that on. I just need to take this battery tray back out quickly, or just loosen it, pull it up, pull those throttle cables through, because I want to get them on now. I think it's going to be a pain to try and do those when this is in situ. So they want to come right down the bottom. So we'll now try and get these cables in place before we get all of this home. I've taken both of these cables out of the throttle tube, and what I've been doing as I've been rotating these or tightening these up, I've just been rotating the other end just so I don't put any strain on the cable itself. So now hopefully we should be able to put those back in and just test that they are working. Just sit them down roughly into place, and I'll tuck these back in. So I've just got a cloth over the throttle because I don't want to get the grips covered in oil, but hopefully you should now be able to see that we've got that all tightened in, and the throttle cables are now all in place and they are doing what they should do. So we can now put the throttle bodies down into these bits themselves. So they now all look to be in place and where they should be. So I can run this coolant line now to the top of the rad. Right, so we do those 4 clamps up at the bottom now. I'm going to just cable tie these 2 together. These are just the lines that you use to balance all of your throttle bodies with your vacuum gauges. But I want those 2 to be cable tied together so they're nice and neat and they don't flap about everywhere. These are all now in place, and I've managed to tighten the clips that run along the bottom in those rubber feet that they sort of sit in. They are quite awkward to get to those fittings, but yeah, we've managed to do that now. And I've run the water pipe up to the top of the radiator. The throttle cables are in. I've checked that the throttle cables operate correctly, as you saw just a moment ago, and I've now sort of done up the throttle tube assembly up the top here, so that's all in place. So what I'm going to do now is look at putting the battery in just while we are while we're at this point, and then we can look at putting the airbox on afterwards. I just want to sort of mock this up as to where this all goes, because we have got this piece here that goes on the top of the battery. And the airbox goes through that, so we look to be okay, as if we're not going to be getting in the way of anything. So now I can put the airbox on and put these in, these screws that hold that, and I'll put the top part of the box on. So it's got a temperature sensor that goes in. We've got the 2 pipes here that go onto there, and then we've got the crankcase breather here. So we have got some similar style fittings on the bottom here, and I've just pre-oiled all of the threads on those. We'll just lay a rag over the top of that. I have cleaned all of the airbox already, so that's all nice and clean inside. And this sensor goes into here, and this pipe onto the top of the breather there. I won't do those up just yet because I need to get these Allen key bits done up under here first that hold the airbox on at the bottom. So I'm not doing any of these clips up tight at all. I'm just doing it to a point where they bottom out. Just grab myself a longer Allen key piece just to see if we can get that in there instead. Now we've got all those in and the pipes on, we can tighten these bolts down up the top here. It's now time for us to start sticking some fluids in, so we can start by putting some coolant in now that we've got all of the cooling lines connected up. I have also put some coolant in the little expansion bottle as well, because it was a bit easier to access a moment ago. Now I'm going to stick some oil in the bike. So we've now got engine oil in the bike, we've got coolant in the bike, and the vast majority of it is back together. What I have done is I've just taken the wiring loom out of the front body panels or the nose fairing, and I've just plugged in the instrument cluster or the dash bit, because what I want to do now is I want to try and turn the bike over, and I think for the immobiliser I was probably going to need that plugged in. So my plan now is to just try and see if it will turn over and build oil pressure before we look at introducing any fuel to the bike. So I can see on the little instrument cluster we have got ourselves the time. So we shall see if this, yeah, so this is now all coming on. It is flashing away, the hazard lights are flashing. Not anymore. It's obviously flashing for no fuel because we haven't got the fuel tank on. So let's try and see if it will turn over. That might be, needs to be in neutral. There we go. So I'll probably do that a few more times off camera just to make sure that we got plenty of oil pressure there. I will recheck the oil level, I'll let that settle, recheck that, check my coolant level. I think the next thing I'm going to look at doing once I've done those bits is putting the rest of the airbox back in, because I can put the new air filter in now, top of the airbox on, and then it's just going to be a case of adding fuel and seeing if it starts. I'm just going to put one screw in either side for the minute because these are rusty and awful, and I want to get a new bunch for the airbox, I think. I've now rechecked the oil on the bike, topped it up a little bit, and we're good to go. I've also double checked the coolant and that's fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rest the fuel tank back in place, plug the fuel line in, plug the fuel pump in, the sender in, and then just introduce a couple of litres of fuel into the tank. I don't want to put too much in there because I've still got some work to do on the tank. Then we're just going to lay it on top, and then we want to try and go for the first start since we've done all this work. I'm not going to run the bike for too long because it doesn't have a silencer on the back, and I don't want to upset the neighbours too much. So I don't know if you could just hear that, but the fuel pump's just primed up, so fingers crossed. We'll go for a start, see what happens. Oh ho 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 ho. He did try and rev up again then, so So that's it for today's video, guys. We finally managed to get this thing back running again, and that is absolutely fantastic. We're one step closer to getting it back on the road. What I'm going to do off camera is get a couple of brackets painted that hold some of the fairings on. Hopefully they're going to turn up soon. So in the next episode, what we can look at doing is getting the fairings on the front, finishing off the back of the bike. I've got to paint the tank as well because that's all crusty and horrible, and just hopefully sort of button things up. Get it running nicely. We'll be able to tune in those throttle bodies, get the idle all sorted, and all being well, we might even be in a position to take it down for an MOT. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.